Hello, this is Mark Sobowitz with the Clarion Voice. Today we are pleased to have as our guest Pastor Garrett Kruse of Legacy Church. Thank you, Garrett, for being here with us. We appreciate it. And I know that we've talked about the Legacy Church and the name change that occurred earlier this year. Atascadero First Assembly was in existence for like 75 years. So what prompted the change to Legacy Church?
Right on. Oh, well, first I want to say it's good to see you, Mark. Good to be with you. It's an honor to be in the Clarion Voice today. Mark, you've been a brother, a friend for many years, so it's cool to sit down and kind of talk shop with you with what's going on with 2020. So yeah, the change, like you said, Atascadero First Assembly, it had some various names over the years, but we're a church that's existed in our community for over 75 years. And I think personally that name was resonating with me for years because I felt, I joined the church in 2011 as a youth pastor. Then a few years after that, took over for Pastor Rick Comstock, and I who was on the channel a couple episodes ago. I felt that legacy. I felt like I was a part of something that I was built up, that I was empowered, and so our whole vision as a church is to kind of have that multi-generational discipleship, to be a church for all generations to belong, behold, and become. Because I felt like that was my story, that I was kind of built from within, and I that name of legacy, not only knowing our place in the community, but also knowing that the decisions we make and how we follow Jesus today might echo for maybe 75 more generations to come. And so if we as a church could have that view of the decisions we make today might impact that generation of tomorrow. And so what can we do to continue that legacy in our community?
So what specific things are you planning on doing to carry out that vision? Are there things that ministry-wise that you're planning on doing, in order to carry out that vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I think we all know that, this year changed a lot about the methodology of church. I think, uniquely for us, like I talked about, we're really trying to build mentoring relationships kind of cross demographically or with generations. I know multiple times in the Old Testament, God says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And which to me is like, he's saying, I'm the God of grandfathers, fathers, and sons, grandmothers, mothers, and daughters. And I think really there's been some beautiful simplicity in what we're able to do right now because of COVID and everything. We're just getting down to that relationship building of getting people that normally wouldn't talk to each other just because of age or because of lifestyle. They just wouldn't interact, but to remind the younger and older generation, I'll put that in big quotation marks and people can fill in where they want to remind them that we need one another, that so often in churches there'll be be it students or college ministry, that they kind of just become these little echo chambers of kind of the blind leading the blind because they don't know what it's like to be older. And then I think sometimes as people get older, they forget what it was like to be a baby Christian. They forget what it was like to be a middle schooler or a high schooler. And so it's, instead of having these little camps of little ministries here and we never interact, we really try, particularly this year, to say, what does it look like to love and care? And, the idea of family is something that's thrown around a lot at church, and rightfully so, but what does it really mean to be the family of God and to love one another and build those kind of relationships that are multi-generational?
So how have the events of this year affected you and affected your ministry, trying to carry out all the relational things that you're shooting for in your vision?
Yeah, I know I speak for every pastor, every business owner, every person that this year's been a struggle. It's been, unique to us. There were so many things that we planned this year that we were so excited about that just, in a moment felt like it was taken from us. Things that, we changed our name this year. We were going to have a huge gathering. And then, of course, large gatherings aren't allowed right now. And so there's this book by Spencer Johnson. It's called Who Moved My Cheese, which is a funny, parable book, just talking about that basically like our mission always stays the same, our why always stays the same, but kind of the methods, like the cheese is always moving. To find success in life or in churches or to really make an impact, it's always changing. And so, of course, you know, we went online for a season. Right now we're in a interesting hybrid model where we have service inside and outside and online, and trying to follow the guidelines, trying to wrestle with that. And I think for me personally, there's definitely been moments where I knew, we all know God's up to something this year. He's doing a trillion things at once, and hopefully if we're lucky enough, we can see one or two. And I feel like God has reminded me, I guess, you know, about that legacy. We've existed for 75 years in the church. And obviously, you know, the church started, you know, Matthew 25, where God said, I'm going to build this. And being reminded that the church has experienced far worse than what we've experienced in 2020. Though what we've experienced has been frustrating, and you know, you and I in our relationship, we've seen people have to leave California and have to transition out, and people that normally just they don't feel safe coming to church, and I feel that weight of like, I wish I could change things, but being reminded that, you know, God's got the whole world in His hands, including our little small expression of His, you know, capital C church, and knowing that all of my brilliant ideas, quote unquote, He didn't need. You know, He wasn't saying, oh man, what am I going to do to be the sovereign Lord over all of the universe without your ideas, Garrett? But leaning back into Him and knowing that He's going to see us through this, and just being thankful and cherishing what we can do, which, you know, for a season was online, and now it's, you know, we're able to do a little more of kind of that traditional church service. But it has been a unique obstacle, and it's been a frustrating obstacle, but I think in that there's been a real powerful sharpening time with God, where He's just reminded me, like, none of this surprised me, and I'll get you through this. Well, you know, He's going to see us through this season, and it's going to be better in the end.
Now, do you think that worship has been compromised to some extent, you know, as far as how to structure that, you know, how to comply with the laws and regulations, you know? Do you think that that's the case, or do you think that we've been able to work through that so that it's still effective to people?
I mean, of course, I feel like there's been a bit of overreaching about the specificities by which we, you know, obviously we know that God has given jurisdiction to our local and state governments, our national government, and praise God for that. And we also know that He's given jurisdiction to the church, and not to dive into all the guidelines and stuff, but I think it has been a unique challenge. I think it has been hindered, but then I think in that, you know, God working all things together for good, I think He's reminded us, one, that, you know, congregational singing is an aspect of worship, but that's not the full definition of worship. Mm-hmm. And I think as well, I've been, you know, just the last few Sundays, I've been proud of our church, because, you know, we recently moved to that model where there's kind of a bit of transition time, because we are doing worship outside in our courtyard right now. And I think it's been a powerful moment of renewed passion to you know, I'll say things to the church like, let's not be the kind of Christians that complain that we can't sing inside, but then, you know, leave when it's time to worship outside. I think that in the struggle, this hasn't looked the way it's been for years and what we're all used to. I think God has strengthened us to push through and to worship through, right? And to even, you know, what He talks about, that sacrifice of praise. Like, yes, it's not inside. Yes, it's outside. Yes, it's unorthodox. Now we're dealing with masks and social distancing, but none of that is the purpose of worship, and none of that should hinder the true audience of worship, which is not you and I, it's God. And if we can, I think, come to Him going, I know this isn't what I'm used to, but You're here, and that's all that should matter to me, then we should be. I hope that through this, when worship becomes more normal, you know, in quotation marks, whatever that's going to look like, that there's this this beautiful sense that, you know what, they can never truly take worship away from us, right? Because God's always with us, and when we gather, regardless of what that might look like, his presence will still be full, and he doesn't have to follow social distancing, right? So I'm hoping that, in years to come, that we can look back and look how our worship grew, look how our congregational expression of worship grew in a season where we did feel hindered.
Do you think that as a result of the fact that we've been taken out of our comfort zone, so to speak, as far as what we traditionally have done, do you think that as a result that people have drawn closer to the Lord and sort of taken a different perspective about that and realized, like you're saying, that God is sovereign?
I hope so. I believe so. I know that, you and I have seen, there's some that I know feel disconnected because of their health or their age. They can't. They've had to connect online, and I know, and I grieve for those that what it means to be a part of Legacy Church is completely different this year, because normally it's like, we'll see you on Sunday. And then you would typically think like, well, if we don't see you physically at church, you're obviously not connected here. But that's really shifted this year, where there are people that connect online. Now, there are people that I've tried to reach out to that just I haven't seen them. But I do know there's a pruning work that God's reminding us of all the things that we never really needed to be the church or to do church. And I hope that, throughout the whole Bible, right? He doesn't mold us and shape us in the easy times, right? He doesn't call us to be comfortable where we're at. I think it's clear that this year he is possibly, gearing us up for more opposition, gearing us up and strengthening us for when things might get harder. But I think this year, I think if we've been obedient to the voice of God, then clearly He's strengthened us and brought hopefully a renewed sense of just cherishing not only the people of God, but the church, both in its expression on Sundays and Wednesdays, when we gather, but then, the church is not a building, the church is not a service, and we can be the church in ways that maybe wouldn't have been appreciated in previous years. Like my neighbors, which normally, pre-COVID, I would talk to them, but it'd be kind of like this, yeah, we're going inside. But then, I think the world got so small, like in March, when we started going inside, and there would be conversations happening just in my little, cul-de-sac in my just local neighborhood that never happened before. And it was, in a way, a gift, be like, wow, look at this. Like we're asking, we're really having deep conversations with people who were previously just strangers. So anyway, the long answer is yes. I believe so.
Now, do you think that the church has been, targeted unfairly as far as, because we hear about different pastors standing up for their congregation and saying, I'm going to, do this and defy the law. And people are, somewhat, casting their frustrations against the church. Do you think that the church is being, let's say, harassed or singled out as a result, even more so than it has been in the past?
I think it's hard to not look at the ways that some things are allowed and some aren't, and it's unique how hands-on they've been with churches. Now I do understand, our policy lawmakers, they're not all evangelical Bible-believing Christians. They're viewing us as just a large gathering, and that's it. And so to a certain extent, I understand that, and then also I understand many churches' decisions to say we are trying our best, but we can no longer follow all of these guidelines if we're gonna. They say 1 in 5 churches are going to be closing down in 2020, and so I understand. I have seen, I believe, a part of Christianity that I really have been trying to pray against. That knowing that everyone has been frustrated, it seems like there's been this real eagerness for defiance we've seen in kind of years, or not years, rather just in the last few months. That because we're frustrated, let's extra push against this. But at least the pastors I've talked to locally, and some that have made decisions either to go back inside before it was permitted or things like that. I know their hearts. At least I can speak for, I think, kind of the pastors I know in kind of SLO County, that it's not a spirit of defiance, and it's not a spirit of, let's do all we can to cause stress for our for Newsom or our state. It's there are things that our state views as essential. Like for us, we're able to do after school tutoring. We're able to do our food pantry and stuff. And I'm very thankful that they view that as essential, because we've been able to love our neighbor, love our community in new ways this year. But I think the struggle that a lot of pastors are feeling right now is, you view that as essential, but you don't necessarily view that congregational expression of worship as essential, which really food pantry and all those different kind of ministries to our community, those only exist because of those congregational gatherings. They only exist because we get to center around. And so, with my board and with my staff, we've talked about like what is essential, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but we can still preach the Bible. We can still gather together. We can still worship. We can still take communion together. There's really some things that are, to me, non-negotiable. And currently, and I know this isn't the case for every church, the way our facilities are set up, we've been able to do that under the guidelines. But I do think the hand has been just too harsh on churches, and I don't think most lawmakers understand the heart of a shepherd. We would never do anything to put our people at risk, right?
Right.
We would never be like, throw caution to the wind. Let's all hug each other with no masks on. Like we I think better than most know what it means to care for a large body of people, and we want to be able to serve them. We want to be able to do what we believe is essential. Of course, keeping them safe and making sure that the virus wouldn't spread to our people or to our community. But I do wish there was more understanding of the heart of a church and what is essential to the members in the church, and also understanding how much Christians love our community. And we don't want to just throw caution to the wind, but we do want to be able to do what is most essential to us in a safe way.
Okay. If someone wanted to get in contact with you at Legacy Church, how would a person go about doing that? What sources do you have there?
Oh, right on. I would say you go to our website at ourlegacy.church, and you can learn more information about us, about specific ministries. We do have Sunday services now. They're 9 a.m., and we have seating both inside and outside, and we're also online on Facebook as well. That'd probably be another way to kind of see the day-to-day of what's going on, and just find us Legacy Church on Facebook, Legacy Church Atascadero on Facebook. And say hello, reach out.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Garrett, for being here today on A Clarion Voice. And if you like our conversation in this video, please share it with someone, and like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Mark Sobowitz with A Clarion Voice.